Plenty of gardeners will happily inform you that they have uncovered plenty of incredible things in their gardens. Very few, however, will have unearthed buried treasure. There was one little girl who discovered a silver coin alongside her mother as they gardened, something which lit up her life. She had no idea what kind of lawful trouble this find would bring her years down the line. Britain was where Kate Hardy and her mother had their happy home. When the sun was out, the two would go out and begin weeding. Kate happened to be more interesting in the dirt than those pesky weeds, but her mother did not mind, loving to see her daughter having fun. Kate was scooping up piles of soil when a phenomenal shining thing caught her eye. The silver coin had revealed itself. Kate tucked the coin away into her dress, keeping the discovery a secret from her mother. This was her special prize. She was not about to let anyone else take it from her, as she bolted for the bathroom to clean it. The coin was ancient and in bad shape. It seemed to have been in the ground for many years. The young girl scrutinized and turned the coin around in her hand for 7 full days before hiding it deep inside her dresser drawer. With the passage of time, the coin would fade into the back of the girl's mind. In just a few years' time, however, the treasure would bring chaos into her life. When Kate stumbled across that magical coin when she was little, she could never have known what its origins were. All that she wished for was a treasure to call her own. As she prepared to make her way off to college, the coin revealed itself once more while she rummaged through her dresser drawer. Just months following her precious rediscovery, Kate's mom passed away. The coin's presence brought a flood of emotional nostalgia as she recalled how she had found the coin while gardening with her beloved mother. This coin would prove to be the final memento of their relationship. Kate could not cope with the death of her mother. The coin was all she had to keep her going, bringing her a maternal sense of comfort and happy memories. A long time passed before the mysterious coin became an even greater source of emotion. When Kate was young, she had no idea what the coin was or how it fitted into the world of money. She just saw it as a sparkling trinket. Now, being a wiser adult, she was committed to uncovering its secrets and worth. Kate decided that she would do her best to learn about the coin. At the age of 23, the coin's secrets could no longer be ignored. Her mind buzzed with questions as she pondered just how such a gift could have come into her backyard. Kate realized that little could be done without the help of a numismatist. She then promptly headed off to a local museum, where she filled a professional in on the nature of her discovery. Kate needed them to aid her in uncovering the coin's secret worth. Kate was hungry for the truth as she hurried through the museum. It was essential that the origins and foundations of the coin be revealed to her. She would soon find out that she would find a lot more than she was looking for, however, and none of it pleasant. Following a short amount of private discussion, the experts approached Kate with a startling revelation. The museum's numismatist revealed to Kate that what she had found all those years ago was not in fact a coin, but something exceptionally unique. She was speechless. What could her childhood treasure actually be? While making her way to the museum on that fateful day, Kate was assured that her beloved treasure was a coin. This was no ordinary coin, as it would turn out, but an incredibly valuable novelty. The coin which that little girl unearthed turned out to be a historical United Kingdom piece of which there were only 4 of. One would think that this would be a phenomenally lucky find for the youthful treasure hunter. But as it turned out, she had now unleashed a regrettable saga. The experts then revealed to Kate that what she had eyed her hand was called a peatfort, something far thicker and weightier than anything used as currency in the past. Any untrained eye would mistake this extraordinary peatfort as a fancy coin. Kate could not understand how something like this would have made its way to her backyard. The knowledgeable museum staff made it clear that Kate's peatfort held a world of value. This information caused her much excitement. Students are well known for their financial struggles after all. This could have been her chance to make it out of this hole. Amazingly, despite being able to tell what Kate's special item was, they had no idea what its original purpose was. Theories have been put forward that these are exemplars, which were used as minters to estimate large amounts for merchants. Regardless, the experts were assured that it was highly valuable, if not the reason for this worth. The peatfort in Kate's hand could very well have been as old as 700 years. Her mind found it exceedingly difficult to process everything that the learned scholars were telling her. Talk about information overload. Kate's pine fort was a dedicatory item, which had been created to honor the 1322 ascension to the French throne by Charles IV. This was one of England's most valued relics, obviously being worth the small fortune. Kate was more than convinced that she was in possession of a hugely expensive historical piece. The expert museum staff calculated the pea fort's worth to be around $3,000. Kate instantly began fantasizing about all the fantastic things she could do with that much money. Kate did have a sentimental attachment to the pea fort, however, as it was a motherly memento. She was then of two minds when it came to the sale of this piece. These memories and connections were invaluable, and nothing could bring her more comfort in the world. That was when Kate's hopes all came crashing down. The police, having been notified of her possession of the pea fort, came rushing to take it away. This was, after all, a sovereign heirloom originally belonging to the royal family. Kate found it hard to sympathize with the police's wishes. They, on the other hand, were at a loss as to why someone would want to hang on to something which rightfully belonged to their government, with much cultural importance. Kate had chosen a museum called Ludlow for help. Its illustrious members were insistent that she should pass ownership onto them, offering to call in more expert help to secure an official evaluation. Kate was being hard-pressed to sell the thing to them. Kate was easily able to turn the grasping museum employees down, heading back home with the item in hand with her silver treasure in hand. She was under the impression that she was now the rightful owner and that she would never let it go. She was oblivious to the impending legal battle on her hands. It seemed like Kate could not pass a day in peace with countless letters lighting up her inbox, insisting that she hand the item over to the museum. The calls would not stop coming, but Megan calmly trashed the letters and ignored the always ringing phone. They would get the pine fort over her dead body. Kate was under the impression that the museum's threats were toothless. Unbeknownst to her, they were ready to bring in the big guns, having brought in Anthony Sipsey from the South Shropshire Police Department to help them with their case. That was when Kate opened her door one day to a couple of severed police officers who handed her a court summons. She could not believe this was happening. Kate was under the impression that this was a case of finders keepers. Being a stubbornly traditional country, Britain was fully armed with laws to combat treasure finders like Kate. Of course, Kate could never have imagined that there were laws just waiting to attack a person who finds something valuable in their backyard. Nevertheless, Kate now had a fretful lawsuit on her hands, with no apparent resolution. Kate would soon be the first English person to be charged with breaking the Treasure Act of 1996. She was struggling to believe that this was happening to her. This was a completely innocent child and find, and yet she was being regarded by the authorities like a criminal. The Treasure Act of 1996 had been brought into effect by the British Parliament as a means of scooping up any piece of gold or silver a British citizen was lucky enough to stumble upon, meaning that they were compelled to hand it all in. The law was the law. Such an act of Parliament ensured that all individuals who stumbled upon items aged more than 300 years, made up of 10% precious metals, which did not happen to be a coin, were to announce their discovery in less than 2 weeks. Kate, of course, was in the dark about this obscure law. She had, however, kept the discovery a secret from her mother and everyone else prior to her charge. It was a horrid feeling, being personally free of any ill intent while being treated like a criminal. The police would not feel sorry for her, however, not taking kindly to any breaking of the law. The police were firm on their stand. Kate had committed a crime by keeping quiet on her treasure while not agreeing to hand the special coin over to the museum, which just made matters worse. The student felt like she had been completely misrepresented. Kate's worry turned to despair very quickly. It was then that she severely began missing her mother's presence as the police began swarming her house. She felt like there's no one she could turn to. The police put her in handcuffs and were doggedly committed to her prosecution. She was now facing the possibility of months behind bars. Kate was in need of the best legal help possible. Brendan Reedy, a lawyer from Shrewsbury with a commendable name in defense, would come to her aid. The gentleman was a veteran magistrate's court defense attorney within the Court of Appeals, the Crown Court, and the Magistrates' Court. He gave Kate his word that he would ensure her freedom and end this nightmare in no time at all. The legal expert was convinced that Kate was in the right and backed her completely. Still, the outcome of the case was very much up in the air, with Kate still fearing that the authorities would force her to return her prized memento. Brett and Reedy then constructed Kate's defense according to the naive age of 5 at which she found the treasure, something which held a significant emotional importance to her today. He backed up his claim of innocence with the fact that this coin had laid unused within Kate's property for most of the time she possessed it. The attorney and his client were hopeful that they had put together a convincing case. They were sure, however, that they faced an unsympathetic court, which would do its best to wrestle the coin out of Kate's hands. All they could do was wait. They did not try to deny Kate's hesitance to return the treasure, even after the relevant law had been made clear to her. While Kate realized that she should have handed in the blindfold, it was the sentimental attachment to it which stayed her hand. Would you give up the only attachment you had left to a parent? You might think that Kate would have been scared into giving up her memento by now. Not so, as the more the authorities pushed, the stronger her resolve to keep it. This was not a case of greed or selfishness. Kate was psychologically unable to part ways with the blindfold. Kate could not relinquish this treasure. It was a priceless piece of her time spent with her beloved mother. She was aware that even if she won this case, that the authorities would continue to hunt for the blindfold. That she realized that it was time to secret the coin away once more. This was a trying and lengthy case, but Kate finally beat the whole debacle, being set free with a conditional discharge. Kate was sure that all she would need to pay were her legal fees. Not so. The blindfold's possession was up for grabs. Kate was tired of being persecuted over the blindfold. She knew that was the time to take the matter up face to face with her nemesis. Kate was committed to finally clearing the air. Kate somehow managed to convince both the authorities and the museum workers that the blindfold has been lost. There would be no more hunting for it. The museum's chances of attaining the treasure were finished. When Kate's case became publicly known, the people condemned the way that it had been handled. How could a museum order the authorities around like their personal lapdogs? Most were in agreement that had they been in Kate's shoes, that they would have also fought this united front for possession. Putting someone in a cell for such a harmless act was regarded as shameful. Very few people agreed with the way that this case had been handled. With widespread public outcry coming to Kate's defense, it was widely settled that Kate had rightfully come into possession of the blindfold. The people decided that the law should have catered to the person who held the item, and not those who wanted it. Kate had been unfairly prosecuted and victimized in a bullying and victimizing manner. As one particularly perceptive Coventry resident called Alan pointed out, Kate had been unreasonably charged, seeing as the blindfold had come into her hands prior to the Treasure Act's 1996 establishment. So if Kate had discovered the item prior to 1996, would the Act's powers still relevant? The prosecution was unable to solidify the time period when the blindfold had been unearthed, but that did not stop the museum's officials from doing everything in their power to apprehend the ancient coin. They were not about to put this case to rest. Alan had more to say on the matter. How could Kate have been legally prosecutable at the tender age of 9? Kids younger than 15 years were only legitimately prosecutable if it was known that they were sentient of their crimes. Further to Alan's views, Kate had been dragged into a legal battle which had cost her a clean record. Ellen was convinced that Kate deserved to have her appeal considered by a reputable judge. Fighting for your rights will often lead to your good name and even future being tarnished. What was the outcome of this sensational treasure battle? Kate had safely hoarded the blindfold for a full 14 years before she informed the authorities that it had disappeared. Of course, we suspect that Kate would never lose track of such a personally precious trinket. There was no way that someone fighting for their life over a coin would just drop it in the street. Kate is an inspiration to us all. The loyalty that she showed to her mother and to her principles would defy even the most crushing and terrifying odds. We cannot shame her for going to creative lengths to defend her rights. How would you have handled this situation if you were Kate? If you have lost a loved one, you might be able to empathize with Kate's determination and will. No one can take away what you found, especially when it holds an irreplaceable status in your heart. Amazingly, after Kate informed her prosecutors that the blindfold was no longer on her person, All efforts to retrieve it soon fizzled out. As for the museum, its staff will never find the Peatford and have since ceased their obsessive pursuits. The controversial coin could very well have earned Kate $3,000, but we can assume that you will never see it up for auction. Kate will most likely keep the item in her family, being one of England's best-kept secrets. Regardless of what happened behind the scenes, we hope that Kate's children will one day understand the significance of the Peatford and why their mother risked everything to keep it. Maybe she will teach them how to hide things convincingly too.